All right, thank you very much for tuning in. We're talking about Dr. Dow's guilty act, right? And whether or not this goes beyond just an ethics violation or beyond, reckless, medical neglect. This one is a crime. It's a crime. It's a physical act or omission that led to the death of a boy or a girl. Right, but not just one, multiple deaths because of this thing here. So we're going to talk about that today. All right. So the actus reus, or the guilty act. So a legal term that a lot of people will be familiar with is actus reus. But what does it mean? It's the guilty act. It's not limited to direct actions, but also includes omissions, right? You didn't do it, failing to act when there is a legal duty to do so. So an act or omission that leads to a guilty, well, to some harm, right? Somebody suffered harm, and in this case, it was the ultimate, the ultimate harm, and this was death. It caused the death of a small boy or a small girl, the death of a baby, right? So in the case of Dr. Dow, her actus reus consists not only of prescribing a drug that resulted in the death of a developing human being, but also her failure to recognize and uphold the biological reality of life, beginning at fertilization. By choosing to adhere to a false definition of pregnancy for the sake of policy or convenience, she omitted her duty to protect life as a medical professional. If a physician has a duty of care to prevent harm, right, do no harm, yeah, sure, and instead facilitates death, right, whether through action or intentional inaction, right, that omission becomes part of the criminal act itself. Right? This clearly establishes culpability, as her failure to acknowledge basic medical truths directly led to loss of life. Right, and in this case, it was actually putting her, you know, her signature on that prescription pad, not telling that young woman that, these are 15, 16, 17-year-old girls, right? They're not going to, do a whole bunch of homework about how this works. They're going to trust their wonderful doctor here um, to 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 tell them the truth. But unfortunately, um, the lie was great, and the consequences were dire. The consequences were led to the death. All right, so we get the guilty act here. But what about the mind, right? So to prove, culpability, we need the guilty mind, right? So the mens rea, or the guilty mind, refers to the mental state of a person committing a crime, whether they acted intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, or negligently. In Dr. Dow's case, she would have learned on the very first day of embryology in medical school that fertilization marks the creation of a genetically distinct human organism. Let's just call it what it is. It's a baby. Right? This is a baby. A baby. I love babies. Babies are cute. It's a small boy, a small girl, right? It is the future of our civilization, right? She would have understood that from that moment, a new life has begun. Yet at some point in her career, she either accepted or conformed to the idea that pregnancy begins at implantation, a claim made for policy reasons, not scientific accuracy. All right. So the question then is whether she is willfully ignorant or knowingly deceptive. Right. So it is difficult to imagine that a learned person trained in medicine could genuinely believe the falsehood that life does not begin at fertilization. Right? If she once knew the truth and later suppressed it, that would indicate knowledge and intent, and an essential component of mens rea, which is the mind, the guilty mind here. Mens rea means the guilty mind. If, however, she has allowed herself to be misled by a political or ideological narrative despite her training, that would still constitute medical negligence or recklessness, which are also forms of culpable mental states. Even if she truly believes the lie, even if she truly believes the lie, would that absolve her from the mens rea? Not necessarily. Okay, so in law, A mistaken belief does not always excuse criminal liability, especially when the mistake arises from willful disregard for known facts. And that's the thing. I do not believe that there is any kind of person. I think they do not even believe that that this baby was started at implantation. I don't actually believe that they believe that. I cannot for 1 minute imagine in my life that this would be the case, that they would actually believe it. I think they know, and they just uh, are some sort of there's some sort of psychopath kind of to the point of the privacy. Is she's a type of psychopath, and I'm not saying that as a type of disrespect. I'm just saying these are the facts, right? How can you know that you are killing a baby and still go ahead and do it, right? At best, she might argue a case of ignorance, but when that ignorance is self-imposed, it only further damns her case, right? So it's a self-imposed ignorance when you know the truth. Well, no, I mean there's just no justification, right? The only possible defense is that some sort of insanity plea or something like that. But a depraved lunatic, a psychopath, is still a criminal. There's no type of defense that she could offer, right? I don't see any right now. I mean, these are really, really egregious crimes. And this is of course the most the greatest crime in history's humanity, right? So, quite a serious topic of conversation here, but for sure, let's recap here. So the actus reus here, the actus reus is the guilty act and the guilty mind here. I would submit that this is inevitable, right? The guilty mind and the guilty act is certainly inevitable, and there is certainly some innocent victims of her act or omission, in addition to the first degree murder of these and the act of the first degree murder of these innocent small boys or small girls. It's hard to grapple with the what I'm actually saying in my own heart, right? I cannot even believe the things that are coming out of my mouth. Anyway, we gotta go. I'll see you. We are talking about the mens rea and the actus reus. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.